Right, I used to be a Christadelphian. I studied with them for a long time. I studied with them for beginning around 2006. I got baptized in 2009. The Christadelphians have a lot of strange teachings claiming that Jesus didn't pre-exist, and I've always had a problem with their interpretation of John chapter 17 and verse 5. So now let's listen to this little article that I've written, and ChatGPT is going to read it out for me.
Why the Christadelphian view of Jesus' non-preexistence is wrong. An Arian perspective on John 17, verse 5. John 17:5, NKJV, reads, "And now, O Father, glorify me together with yourself, with the glory which I had with you before the world was." This verse is one of the clearest affirmations in the New Testament that Jesus, as the Son of God, existed before his earthly life. From an Arian perspective, it definitively counters the Christadelphian claim that Jesus did not pre-exist. While Arianism acknowledges that Jesus is not co-eternal or co-equal with the Father, it firmly holds that he pre-existed as the first and highest creation of God, the Logos, Word, through whom all things were made, John 1:3. Christadelphian position on non-preexistence. Christadelphians deny the preexistence of Christ, teaching that Jesus began his existence at his conception in Mary's womb. According to their view, Jesus is entirely human, chosen and empowered by God, but having no existence prior to his earthly life. They interpret passages like John 17:5 figuratively, claiming that the glory Jesus speaks of is not a literal preexistence, but a prophetic reference to the foreordained plan of God. This interpretation, however, fails to adequately address the clear language of the text, particularly the reference to Jesus sharing glory with the Father before the world was. Arian understanding of John 17, verse 5. From an Arian perspective, John 17, verse 5 unequivocally teaches that Jesus pre-existed as the Logos. While Arianism does not view Jesus as co-eternal or of the same essence as the Father, it affirms that he was created by the Father as the first and highest of all beings and existed before the foundation of the world. Let us examine why John 17:5 refutes the Christadelphian position and supports the Arian understanding. Jesus speaks of shared glory before the world existed. In this verse, Jesus prays to the Father, asking to be glorified together with yourself, with the glory which I had with you before the world was. This statement explicitly refers to a time before creation, indicating that Jesus existed in a state of glory with the Father prior to the world's formation. The phrase "before the world was" cannot be reduced to mere foreordination or God's plan. The natural reading of the text shows that Jesus is speaking of an actual shared glory, not a future event that was merely foreseen by God. The concept of foreordained glory fails to capture the personal and relational nature of this shared experience between the Father and the Son. 2. Consistent with preexistence in other scriptures. John 17, verse 5 aligns with other passages that affirm the preexistence of Christ. For example, John 1:1-3 states that the Logos was in the beginning with God, and that all things were made through him. Colossians 1:15-16 also describes the Son as the firstborn over all creation, and the agent through whom all things were created. The Christadelphian interpretation of John 17:5 as a reference to God's plan is inconsistent with these passages, which present the Son as an active participant in creation and as existing before all things. Arianism harmonizes these texts by affirming that the Son pre-existed as the Logos, created by the Father before the beginning of time. 3. The unique relationship between the Father and the Son. Jesus' prayer in John 17 emphasizes the unique relationship he has with the Father. In verse 24, Jesus further declares, "You loved me before the foundation of the world." This reinforces the idea that the Father and the Son shared a relationship of love and glory before creation. The Christadelphian view fails to account for the relational language in this verse. If Jesus did not pre-exist, how could the Father have loved him before the foundation of the world? Arianism provides a clear answer. The Father created the Son as the first and highest being, and their relationship existed prior to the creation of the world. The concept of glory in Arian theology. Arianism understands the glory mentioned in John 17:5 as the divine honor and majesty that the Son shared with the Father in his pre-existent state. This glory was not equal to the Father's, as Arianism emphasizes the Son's subordination, but it was a unique and exalted glory befitting the first and greatest of God's creations. When Jesus prays to be glorified again, he is asking for the restoration of this pre-existent glory, which he temporarily set aside during his earthly ministry. This understanding is consistent with Philippians 2, verses 6 to 11, where Paul describes the Son humbling himself and then being exalted by God. Conclusion. Arianism as the true understanding. John 17:5 clearly refutes the Christadelphian denial of Christ's pre-existence. The verse explicitly teaches that Jesus shared glory with the Father before the creation of the world, which cannot be explained away as mere foreordination. The language of the text, along with its harmony with other passages affirming Christ's pre-existence, demonstrates that Jesus existed as the Logos before his incarnation. Arianism provides the most biblically consistent understanding of John 17, verse 5. It recognizes that Jesus pre-existed as the first and highest creation of God, subordinate to the Father, but exalted above all other beings. The Christadelphian view, by denying the pre-existence of Christ, fails to account for the plain meaning of the text and undermines the unique relationship between the Father and the Son described in Scripture.
So the Christadelphians are telling a pack of lies. Their teachings aren't consistent. They've changed over time, especially regarding the nature of man. That teaching is constantly changing. The original teaching in 1855 was replaced in 1873, and then they've constantly changing their views about the nature of man and the nature of sin. For some reason, they don't like the word physical and they don't like the word corporeal.